Our first speaker is Lilly Mensah. Lilly Mensah works with Global Platform and has 18 years of experience in the NGO. And she has experiences also in terms of working with persons with disability, and also in the area of women advocacy and women rights. So our speaker is also a certified trainer in artistic activism. So we would show so much knowledge and experience to share with us on today's session that will be on artistic activism as well as community and storytelling. We have Lilly Mensah, and she would be our first trainer for today. Thank you very much, Lilly Mensah, and you have our audience.
Thank you, Daniel. I have my colleague and manager, Dorcas, on the line or on the meetings schedule as well. I would want her to take us through just a brief introduction because it looks like we have a bit of change of plans. Because most of us are working from home, a lot of demands are coming left, right, center, and she would have to leave us very soon. So Daniel, if you don't mind, I would pass the baton to Dorcas. She does her brief introduction among other things, and then I'll take it on from there, if you don't mind.
Oh, great. Okay, so here in the case, we are moving to, we'll go to our second speaker will be taking us, then we move to the first speaker then. So we have Dorcas Yobo, the country manager of Global Platform Ghana, and she will be taking us through the communications and storytelling, the essence, looking at how best it could help us achieve our advocacy goals, and sometimes also help us as young people who are looking forward to start activism in our own community or in our own association or elsewhere. So Dr. Yobo will be taking us through, and please, you're welcome to our platform, and thanks so much for making the time to be with us. We appreciate the time, and we hope to learn so much from you. A brief profile about Dr. Yobo. So just that bit, and also she has been working on women's rights and also youth advocacy. She's a trainer, and she's been doing this years for about, okay, I could say perhaps less than a decade, but it has been great. I don't know whether I'm bringing it low, I'm rather raising it high. So Dr. Yobo, you have our audience, and thanks so much for having us.
Hello, awesome people. How are you all doing? I'm going to force everybody to talk. Hello, we're going to learn together. We're going to do this together. So I hope everybody is good. Can we put on our videos, or it's not a good idea?
Okay, we can.
I think it'd be nice to see everyone's face.
Yes. So you have
Samuel. I can see Samuel.
Yes,
Bafo. I can see Noel Magaya. That is Noel. All right. Sorry, I'm using my phone, so I think am I getting everybody?
Okay.
Master, where are you? I can't see you. Kwame, you can't hide though. Well, waiting for you.
Students for Omashas here.
Kwame. Yeah. That's Kwame. Students for Nomade, Omada.
Debut, Mr. Onse, Swansea, any.
Yeah, that's Lilly. Wonderful. Great. Now this is now interesting. Okay, guys. So I've also not put on my and you guys will not ask. All right.
Oh, we'll ask. We are just being patient. We know you surely do it.
All right. So it's really awesome being here. I was telling Daniel yesterday on Sunday, we're having a chat, and I was like, okay, so how long will this take? All right, but in as much as I'm very interested and I'm looking forward to talk to all of you, I think I would really like this to be a collective learning process where I know most of you must have even had more experience than I do. And you share the little that you have. I bring the little experience that I also have, and we come up with a perfect, ideas on how to best embark on an advocacy course. Okay, are we cool?
Yes, we are. We are cool. We're cool with it.
All right, great. So I would just start by saying that as Daniel mentioned, I work with Global Platform. Global Platform is the training division and the youth division or the youth space of Action Aid Ghana. And here we simply empower youth with relevant skills, knowledge, and attitude to be able to champion a positive change in their communities. So, and besides that, we do a lot of tailored trainings too for organizations such as Water Aid, and I've had some of you to lead in some of our trainings. But let's go straight into our focus as to why we are here. I think as youth who actually belong to various youth groups and youth or movements, I would say that we tend to have a peculiar interest in ensuring that we have a collective influence when it comes to decision making, especially within our political and social systems, within our political spaces and social systems that actually exist within our communities. But what really matters from my experience within the field in community work and in terms of supporting youth with a number of advocacy work, I think what really matters is how we communicate effectively on our advocacy issues. It even starts right from your homes. I would like to share an experience which really didn't go so well, but today I'm more comfortable sharing one of my advocacy courses or advocacy plans with you that really failed. I failed woefully in it, and I'm willing to share some of my experiences in it. But generally, the lessons I've learned so far is that in order for us to get the desired results whenever we embark on an advocacy course depends on how we're able to effectively communicate our issues and our messages. It also depends on what exactly is our, what communication channels are we using? Is it a speech? Are we using media? Or what exactly are we using? And who exactly are we targeting? That is very key. But before we get into that, it's not going to be a one-man talk here. So I'll go around. I'll start with Sammy. Sammy, you're in trouble today. So we want to know, it's going to, everybody, I want to know, before we even delve in deeper, I want to know, have you ever embarked on any advocacy, a campaign or any advocacy work? And what was the experience for you? Did it go well? If yes, tell me what 2 things that went well, and if not, what are the 2 other things that you think you will not repeat again?
Oh, okay. So my
one word, even before you come to that, one word that describes advocacy. What is advocacy? Just one word. If you say 2, you have failed. One word.
Okay. I would say one word. Let's just say, I would say unassuming.
Unassuming.
Yes.
Okay, I've written that somewhere. I'm sure Lilly is writing somewhere. Unassuming.
Yes.
All right, great. I'll come back to you, Sammy.
Okay.
And Noel. Something that reminds you of advocacy, just one word.
One word on advocacy. I'll say passion.
Passion. All right, Kwame, over to you. When someone says advocacy, what word comes to your mind automatically?
Advocacy is to convince.
Hey, Kwame, wait. I said one word though.
One word? Communication.
Thank you. Thank you. Lily, patience. Oh, patience, you're welcome. Stella, one word that comes to your mind when you say advocacy. When you hear the word advocacy, sorry. Oh, Stella, you for muted. We want to see your face too. Oh. Okay, I'll go around and I'll come back.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe Stella.
Daniel, you want to say something?
No, I'm sure maybe Stella is now just getting adjusted to, so.
Ah, okay. So it's unfair to call her out. Patience. You are ready? Okay, Lily.
Change.
What? Change.
Yep, change.
All right, perfect.
Positive.
So,
okay, well, it's not work.
All right, great. So, now, Samuel, you mentioned one word, and I want you to tell me, just share an experience with me. Have you ever embarked on a course? Did it go well? If it didn't go well, why do you think it didn't go well?
Okay, so I think in school I've had the opportunity to embark on a couple of them. And the very first one I remember we ever did was we were trying to embark on an advocacy that sought to see our timetable that we used to learn in school more flexible. So there was a situation where we felt like the lecturers and administration weren't really considering students and the thing that we go to when they are drawing up the timetable. So it ends up not favoring us. What we decided to do was to go around and try and get people sign on to our petition that we had. Now, the reason I said unassuming is that we had in our minds a perfect picture where you have everybody rushing onto it, trying to sign to, continue with your advocacy. But we ended up in a situation that was rather way opposite what we expected. So it gets, for instance, to a seniors class, and a senior tells you that, for me, I'm not affected by that. Meanwhile, in our own student circles, we tend to complain about that same thing. And so you have the perfect picture in mind, but a lot of things come your way. So sometimes there are others you meet who perfectly agree and easily sign. And so the lessons I took away from that is, first of all, just like you said earlier, we one thing we didn't do was to really communicate it well to the students. And then secondly, they saw it more as we were trying to challenge the administration rather than we trying to sit with them and make sure that they do things in our favor, that we judge so that everything goes well. And so it was basically the communication for me that didn't really go down well.
Okay, thank you. Kwame, are you there? You want to share an experience? You need to unmute your mic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Yeah, I think I've done that. Probably it's clear now.
Yeah.
Good. My work basically is about advocacy and making sure that the public understand what albinism is and then reduce the stigmatization and discrimination that come with it. So basically involving daily based advocacy. And I do that through all mediums, talking about social media, the traditional media, that is radio, TV, and also underground advocacy, that is going into communities to educate people about the condition. So I'm basically involved in advocacy as my work.
Okay, so in your course of work, is there anything that didn't go so well or something that went so well and you want to share?
Yeah, one thing I would say that didn't go so well is when we enter the community that is kind of prohibited for a person with albinism to enter, and we are not allowed to even disembark from our vehicles. And I think that didn't go well because knowing the fact that we are not aligned in the community, we shouldn't have gone in the first place. We should have taken the community leaders out of that community to a different place to be able to educate them. Yeah, but the same way, we were able to leverage on that unfortunate situation to blow out the situation. And I think though it is unfortunate you couldn't disembark from the vehicle, I was right in the community taking pictures as I was in the vehicle, and I was posting it on social media, and it blew out the whole situation. And it worked in a way, it helps us to get to know what actually person with albinism go through in such a
Interesting story. Is Noel with us? Okay, Noel is not here. All right, thanks for sharing, Kwame. All right, so I would want to share, anybody else wants to share? We're sharing some experiences we've had when it comes to embarking on an advocacy course or plan that you've once come up with. It could be at any level at all. Do you want to share why it went well or why it didn't go so well? Just reasons. And if you had a chance to do it again, what would you do differently? Maybe it's Patience, Stella.
I would just want to share my experience.
Yes,
I remember
Lilly.
I remember when I was working with the African Youth with Disabilities Network. Then the headquarters was in Nairobi. The very first meeting we had, we wanted to see how we can talk about advocate for the ratification of the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities here in Ghana. I personally faced a challenge because people with disabilities within our circles were asking me, you don't have a disability, so why are you part of those who are advocating? And I kept getting that constantly. Then I asked them that the fact that I don't have a disability doesn't mean I shouldn't advocate for what I know is right, because it's a basic human rights concept. It's a basic human right that everybody needs to have, regardless of your status in society. So within our circles, those were the challenges. But at the end of the day, they got to know that, well, this is not just Lily being part of the team because she wants to be part of it. So far as she's an advocate, she's all round. And so it's ended up working well. And I think Ghana, yes, has ratified the UNCRP. In terms of if it is working, that is also another case altogether. But that is my story. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you. So I have a number of embarrassing stories to share. So I hope you're ready. The first one is when I was about 16.
I don't know, I wanted to cut you short, but I know Patience raised their hand. I don't know if I can take that shortly. We continue. Oh,
sorry, who?
Patience.
Oh yes, Patience, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I couldn't respond to the first question. Okay, so I remember
it's fine.
Okay, so together with Daniel and then 350G Rock, we organized something like a campaign or workshop for GIS students to teach them about how to, as communicators, to communicate for climate change. But then one thing we did was to focus too much on what the people are going to get, as in the material things they are going to get when they come for the meeting. So we realized that at the end of the day, when they came and then some of them didn't get the things we asked or we told them they are going to get, it became a little like issues came out of it. So one lesson I learned was that anytime we want to advocate for anything, we shouldn't just tell the people, or we shouldn't just focus on the immediate needs or the material things that people are going to get, but then the impact or the change that the people in the community or whatever place they are going to experience. So that was my experience.
Great.
Hello. Hello.
Stella. Yes. Hi.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about earlier. So it's that time of the month for me. I'm having a very difficult morning, but I just figured out. I just understood the question, and I want to share my experience as well. So I did embark on a personal project, but there was one with UNICEF. I think somewhere last year. So we went to about 5 regions in Ghana to sort of teach girls, young girls, how to write and how to tell their own stories. So it was our own way of empowering them to be able to tell their own stories. So I was a part as a trainer. I was on the project as a trainer. So we're equipping girls with storytelling skills. So what we wanted to do was to hear stories about what they are doing as young people to bring change to their communities. We wanted stories from girls in STEM, girls who are doing what society puts a barrier on for girls. So those are the stories we expected to get from the whole project. We expected to have powerful stories, girls doing the most. However, on our last day of the program, somewhere in Paul, we had a very interesting session. For me, it was interesting, but it was heartbreaking as well for the young girls that were telling their stories. The girls were sharing stories about how they were raped by their families. So the session sort of turned into a whole therapy. We had to now deal with girls who were crying, telling their stories, and I think we did not expect that. So after every session, what we have to do is to work on the stories again, edit it for the Voice of the Youth platform. It's a UNICEF platform. Now, even though the aim was to go in for stories that will inspire other girls, the stories were sad. The stories were of girls who were raped. Now, we had to find a way to make it work. So I think when you are starting a project or when you are going into a project, you need to be able to foresee all those circumstances. And for us, what we did not do was to foresee that it could go sideways, where even though we wanted to share positive stories and empower these girls, we ended up hurting them. They had to open up wounds that maybe we did not want them to. So we had to find a way to deal with that. And so I think for me, what we did wrong, I guess, is not really foreseeing that, because we were going to inspire girls to tell their own stories. We should have known that in our society, there are girls who go through that. We did not foresee gender-based violence. We did not foresee violence against children coming out from the stories that we wanted to get from the girls. So I think sometimes we should embrace, you should understand the society that you come from when you are designing such projects. So yes, thank you. It was a long one, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I just want to, I don't know anyone else wants to share, but I think due to time, we may want to just move on. But if anybody wants to share, let's see if we have some extra time and then you can share when we come back. But I just have one little one to share. You see, and it's just directly linked to communication. When I was 16 years old, I needed a phone. Okay, and I wanted that phone so badly that I needed to find my way through. I mean, my dad was very strict, my mom too was very strict, but I needed to find a way of getting that phone. So what I did was I had to observe very well. Whenever they are in their good moods, after they've eaten their favorite fufu and banku, then I'm now sitting around, talking about something that will interest them. And then gradually I asked, the first person I asked was my father. And my father said, what do you want the phone for? You don't need a phone. Is that why you've been roaming around up and down? Come on, go and sit somewhere. Now, I went to my mother and I asked my mother, and my mom said, well, if you turn 18, then you can get a phone, but not now, because that is the rule in the house. You know, this is the rule we have for all our children. You can't have a phone until you are of a certain age. And you see, the lesson I learned there is, it wasn't about how nice you are, but it has to do with certain rules that they do have, which I wasn't privy to. That is one. So it told me a lot. It started at a very young age on how to communicate and who you should communicate with. Another incident of my very first job was to train traditional leaders on, or raise awareness on, the importance of including women in decision-making processes. This was in Volga. And I had come from, you have paramount chiefs, you have sub-regional chiefs, you have all these chiefs in the room, okay? Lilly is already smiling because I think I've shared this before somewhere. And there I was a consultant, I think, with Kofi Annan Peacekeeping, and they asked me to speak to them a little bit about women's rights and stuff. And by then I just come from, I had my degree from SA, and for me, it was more about confidence with the content. Okay, content was important for me. But when I got there, things didn't turn out. Things went way off. Why? Because I was not able to, I didn't know, I knew those I was going to speak to, but because of the background in which I was coming from, it was okay for you to cross your leg and speak to anybody because you have a right to speak. The background I had was it was okay for you as an individual to call people by their first names. It was okay for me. I mean, it was okay. That's what I learned from all the education that I was having. But when I went there, I started talking to people, I mean, in discussions, I mean, pointing to paramount chiefs with my left hand, and you can imagine how things turned out. Yes. I said, oh, yes, chief. And my left hand was going left, right, center. And the whole room kept quiet. And this is a plan. I was entrusted to do this training as a first step to ensure that these paramount chiefs include women in decision-making processes. And I go there and I'm using my left hand. Of course, as I started, I wasn't aware that the left hand was a problem. Okay, because I mean, I'm just expressing my content was solid. I had my diagrams, my everything intact, but it wasn't about that. So it had to take a pastor within the meeting to call me aside and said, I need to speak to you about something. And he asked me, okay, he asked me that, do I like feedback? And I said, yes. And he's like, okay, one, did you grow up here? And I said, no. And he's like, okay, so where did you grow up? I mentioned. And he's like, have you noticed that the whole place is quiet? And I'm like, yes, I thought they were understanding what I'm saying. I said, no, they are very upset with you. And I said, why? And he said, you keep using your left hand while speaking to traditional authorities. And at the same time, you are asking them to consider women in decision-making processes. So one, I wouldn't call it, it's not part of mannerisms, but more of my body language wasn't good. So from day one, it was a flop. And they were not ready to listen. At break time, they all just dispersed. You know, for them to come back was something else. We had to go plead with them. And when they came back, I had to explain. Another one is in the three, how do you call it? Another one is in the Nandam traditional area, we wanted to embark on a course. And that was more of reviewing an existing dowry system of marriage in the Nandam traditional area. Let me run off with this experience where it just links up to the points I want to share. So that is why I want to just finish up with the story. in the Nandam traditional area, the dowry system of marriage was too complicated and was too expensive for people or young people who were ready to get married. And as a result of that, young guys would not get married, but would rather want to have girlfriends, numerous girlfriends, have children, and just go on to the next girl, you know. And we approached the paramount chief of Laura and the how do you call Nandom Nang. We approached those two chiefs, and it is not just me, but a delegation. We had country directors, we had people who went there. And by then I was an intern. I just sat with them and I was just smiling, carrying bags here and there. I mean, listening and learning more, you know. And when I went there, the paramount chief of Laura's men, she said something. He asked us why we came to visit. And we went there. We're very armed. We knew all what we wanted to say. We had the best people, journalists. We had a lot of people who could speak. You know, we're ready. And we went in 4 vehicles. We were ready. We meant business. So when we got there, the paramount chief asked us, so you're here, what is the issue? Then we started. You know, in this community, blah, 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 this is what is happening. Your youth are doing this. This is how women are affected. We were on and on and on and on and on and on. That is how we started. The paramount chief said, well, as you are talking, I've never heard the issue before. 1, it is not a problem in my community. 2, if you want us to respond to this, then I'll have to communicate with you regularly. So you need to prepare to give me a laptop to be able to communicate with you regularly and give you updates on the situation in my community, whether it is true or not. Because laptops are communication is very key. And he went on and on and on and on. And then we were put in a situation because we needed to prove that we had a case. But we went empty-handed without a research. We didn't have our facts. So already our campaign in that regard or in that very community was flawed. So with all these experiences, I've come to realize that that embarking on a campaign plan is you have to carefully calculate your plan and engage a lot of people and ensure that you are reaching the right people with the right messages. Now, when it comes to communication, effective communication, we've run a training here at the global platform before, and I'd have loved to take you back into various groups, but because we don't have time, I'll just take you through 5 main points that are very, very key when it comes to effective communication in every advocacy plan that you have. 1, the first, I will just start by just raising questions. Okay, the first one is the issue and the context in which you are learning or you are working in. What advocacy issue are you actually communicating? That is the first question you should ask yourself as an activist or an advocate. Please, I'll have a 1-page handout on this. So Lilly can share with you by mail when we're done, so you don't have to write so much. But the questions are the issues and the context. What issue do you want to communicate? If the issue, so for instance, if it's about teaching and learning materials for schools in deprived communities, are you concerned so much about the availability of the materials, or you are concerned about the way the teachers teach the children? If you are talking about effective education or good education for the children, what are you specifically involved in? So you need to dissect the problem and decide on one path you want to embark on. And then you ask yourself, are these things, are people already doing work around this issue? Who are those who are affected by this issue? Who are those against this issue? In every advocacy plan, we need to understand who does not support your cause. and your ability to work around those who do not support you is very, very important. And two, the objective of your advocacy. What is your demand, or what is your main message? Do you have a slogan? Is your message in your slogan? Your slogan has to carry your message throughout, and you have to have one slogan throughout. And it doesn't matter which medium or communication channel you're using, whether it's live speeches, media, social media, one-on-one dialogue with people, you have to keep to what you are demanding for. And then thirdly, the sender. Who are you specifically? Are you a coalition of youth groups approaching duty bearers? And why are you motivated to advocate on the issue? For instance, in the COVID-19 situation, a lot of monies are coming in. Governments have a lot of monies to address the issue. This is where you can even share your personal story. Share how COVID-19 probably has affected you. That one, Lilly will come in and tell you a little bit more on how you use stories. You can use your own personal stories of how things have affected you to communicate your motive behind why you are advocating for a cause or an issue. This is quite key. And then second to the last, your audience. Whom are you targeting? I think I've already mentioned this earlier. How do they become aware of the issue? Do they listen more to radio, or they listen more to graphics, or they listen more to they read newspapers more often? How do you ensure that you reach out to them? That is also very important. And now, finally, your call to action. What exactly do you want your audience to do about the situation? For instance, if I'm asking the Minister of Information about how you're going to use the funds you're receiving from COVID-19 situation in Ghana, I will expect him to tell me, okay, this amount of money is going to these regions, or this amount of money is going to this hospital to address this issue. They have to be specific. So that demand needs to be made very clear to the duty bearer. Sometimes, because of our political affiliations, we don't want to be open about what it is that we are demanding for. And sometimes, because your father or your mother may be MPP or NDC, you really don't think it's appropriate to be very clear of what it is you are demanding for. So, but it is important, especially when you're working as a coalition, to be very clear with what it is that you are demanding for. And of course, one line of argument is always the best. Yes, when it comes to issues of, for instance, teaching and learning materials, there are a whole lot of education, better education for young people. There are a whole lot of issues that are important. But pick one campaign focus, one particular issue, and focus on it. Don't talk about teaching and learning materials and say, oh, even if the teachers are not even well trained, you lose your audience. So that is also very key. And I think at this point in time, I'll leave for questions. I'll ask if you have any questions. Sorry, I'm rushing through this. I think we took more time sharing stories, but Lilly will come in and highlight more on how you can use your personal story to communicate your concerns. But do you have any questions so far on what we have discussed?
Stella, do you have something?
Hello. Oh, sorry. Yes. It's just a brief one. I have an advocacy project that I'm working on at the moment, and it's mainly going to use storytelling to achieve my objective. So I wanted to know if you have some advice for me. So the project is going to be mainly based on using storytelling to achieve my objective. So I won't have to go to any community to speak to people, but my main strategy is to use the stories of people to achieve my objective. So I don't know if it's clear, but I wanted to know if you have any advice for me.
Yes. Okay. So Stella will be looking at that shortly. Lily will be moving into that session of storytelling. So I think just as your question has come in, it will be addressed in her presentation.
So, okay, all right, sure.
Yes, please. Okay. Thank you so much. So we are moving to the next session that will be taken by Lily. And I've already shared a profile with you, and maybe okay. So Lily, you have should I say a former colleague, but maybe it's curious minds too. So maybe meet Lily, meet Mavis. So that's one feature. Kwame was requesting for the contact we also share because of your area. You working with persons with disability, and Kwame also works in that area, and I'm sure all of us in various sessions would love to have the contact. So the contact, every material, every resource that has been shared today will be sent via mails to all of us. So thank you so much, Lily. You have our audience now.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, do I have the opportunity to share my screen?
Yes, please, you have.
Okay, great. So I'll be sharing my screen and then we'll be speaking to it as the presentation goes on. I hope you can all see.
Yes, yes, brilliant. You can see advocacy and storytelling.
Great. So Dorcas has spoken a lot. I'm skipping all this and then here we are. Okay, so when we say storytelling, I know most of us have had the opportunity to those times when By the Fireside was in full swing with Mame Dokno and I think Kokoto and Co. We were always eager every Saturdays to go sit by our televisions and watch and see what else Pekwana did this time around. The whole aspect behind storytelling is just to make sure that you are putting in the people's experiences because it's something that relates to people. So then in terms of advocacy, in the beginning, we gave various examples. As some said, advocacy means change. Others said unassuming. Someone says passion, communication, and the likes like that. So basically, in terms of storytelling, it's an embodiment of all these various examples that we have given. So, of course, what's storytelling? What are you going to say in terms of defining? I took this from somewhere, and it's telling us that you are using someone's voice and body to relate to a story to one or more listeners. And it's a mixture of facial expressions, gestures, body language, variety of tones and voice. So you get to know that if someone is speaking to you, and this closely links to communication, okay? If someone is speaking to you, you are looking at their facial expressions. I mean, right now, some of us have our videos on, others have their videos off. You can tell if someone is interested in what you are saying. Maybe they are elsewhere taking a cup of coffee or doing something else. And you can even tell from their body language whether they are interested or they are not interested. So in terms of even the tones and the voices, you are trying to see, are they really speaking passionately about my issue or what's happening? So it's an embodiment of communication as well. So for instance, I think either Patience or Stella shared a story about they going to speak to girls in the communities and they face certain unplanned and unforeseen challenges where now the girls became all emotional and they didn't know how to sort out that situation. Maybe whatever you did went well, but you didn't plan for the plan B aspect of it. And so then there became a gap and you have learned from that. So the next thing is next time you are going there or do something similar, what would you be doing differently as far as advocacy storytelling is concerned? Now, we know that, for instance, if we are looking at why should we even be concerned in the first place about telling stories, people are able to relate more when you tell your issues in a story form, okay? So for instance, currently we are in the whole COVID pandemic. Those times when Doomsaw was like, Ghana was suffering from Doomsaw, people will come out, you hear some radio stations interviewing people, tell us your personal experience, what are you going through? You can't come in and say that, oh, a certain woman said that her cold store, all her fish and her chicken and everything is spoiled. They be I say yes, they be I say yes, but then it is not so personal to the person, okay? But if then the radio stations or the TV stations came and then they went into a community, they followed this woman who has the cold store and she opens her cold store, the fridge to you and shows you the spoiled chicken, the spoiled fish and everything. And even it's in a community, let's say it's in a Sharman or it's in Ofanko or it's in Medina or wherever you are, you know the person, you know this person, you can relate very well that indeed she has a cold store and indeed these things got spoiled. I remember even Yvonne Nelson did her Doomsday Must Stop campaign and saying that her mom was almost going blind because of Doomsday, and people took it on Twitter and everything. But people are telling their life stories as far as certain situations are concerned, okay? They are communicating it in a way that would touch your emotions, and some of these things even went viral, okay? I know there's one popular audio that CTFM used to play about a woman blaming, an old woman blaming Mahama for the doomsday, and she was saying those times she eats 3 times a day, but her mother doesn't have, daughter doesn't have the money now to be even giving her fried eggs and things, and it was so real and personal, you see. So storytelling speaks to people's emotions, okay? People are sharing their experiences, and then it brings a form of trust because our human nature, we are always geared towards people's emotions. For instance, some of the scammers that, let's say, some are very genuine, others are not, but for some scammers, you would meet them on the on the roadside with their children, okay? And they'll tell you, my child is sick, I've been to the hospital, these are the list of drugs. And you see that the child is lanky, hasn't eaten, is dirty, and you are moved to give something. So people have played upon people's trust in those situations to also do the otherwise. But the basic idea about storytelling is that we are seeing how people are different in so many ways.
Sorry, Lily, the network is quite hazy.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. The network was quite hazy, so we didn't hear the last bit of it.
Okay, so I'm saying that as far as tips for storytelling are concerned, okay, if you come and tell people a story within their own context, of course they will remember it forever. Dorcas mentioned how she wanted them to include women in decision making within the whole the paramount chiefs and their communities and everything. If you're able to tell them the reason why women need to be part of such decision-making processes in a way that would speak to their emotions, their everyday life, they would definitely remember what you did. Are you going to do it in a form of sketch? Are you going to do it in a form of poetry? Is it music? How are you going to let them understand the situations around them? So it's important to identify a target group, because if you are talking about COVID-19 and then how it has affected someone who has recovered, you can't go and talk about it to someone else who has no business about someone who has recovered. That is not the target community. They don't care. Or if someone is not suffering from meningitis, why would you go and talk to them about meningitis? If someone has water flowing 24 hours, 7 days a week, they don't care about you telling them you have to know how to keep your water and all that. It has to be very personal. So your target community is important. If you are going to talk about abortion, you are going to talk about menstrual health management, you are going to talk about gender discrimination and everything, you should know who your target groups are, who are those being the most affected. You can't go and tell a rich man that you should know how to save, or tell a poor man that, oh, you should eat 5 times a day, because even the way their food comes about or how they live from hand to mouth. So how are you going to tell me eat 5 times a day or eat a very healthy diet. So you should know who you are approaching to speak to. And when we are saying you should choose the right storytelling, which platform? Dorcas mentioned that. How are you going to speak about your issues? Okay. If your people are not on social media, don't talk about it on social media, because you won't get the people who need to make the change you want. Usually on Mother's Day, people will come and write so many beautiful things on Facebook and Twitter about how I love my mom. But excuse me to say, most of our parents are not on social media. So why are you go and tell them, take up a phone, call them and tell them Happy Mother's Day? You see? So you need to choose the right platforms to tell the stories. Go into their community, have a community deba, speak with the chiefs, speak with the students on campus. You want to have an SRC meeting to change something within the school, but you are doing it when lectures are happening. Nobody is going to mind, because people want to make their A's and pass and get their first class and leave. Nobody has time to come and miss out their class for something, unless it is a general demonstration they want to do. So choose the right storytelling path you want to use. Is it personal? Is it music? Is it poetry? Just go down to the people's level and what they do best. And find the right messengers for the story. There's this popular thing about someone wanting to talk about poverty alleviation in a very poor, deprived community. And he went there in a Range Rover with a suit and tie and everything, going to talk about poverty alleviation. Well, yeah, you are well dressed, but you have not come down to our level. So you don't even know what we are feeling. But if you went there to speak to them as an ordinary man in your jeans and dress top and everything, and you went there, sat on the stool they gave you, drank from the calabash they served the water with, and you listened to them and spoke their language, definitely they would be able to listen to you. Okay. Sometimes, like Dorcas said, she had her content, everything was well prepared, but she went about throwing her hands and doing things. They will close their mind totally to you. You've not even, that first gap has not been broken, that bridge has not been broken. So they won't even listen to you. So send the right messages. There are people who would speak it, and even in front of kings and queens, they would kneel down and speak the local language. When you go to La, they would speak the Ga language for you. They would speak the Ewe, the tree, everything. Sits in the boats, go to the farm with the farmer who has not caught anything in God knows how long. Speak about how the weeds are destroying his farms and the weevils and everything. You are there with them, so send the right people for. Don't go and send someone who would stand outside the community and say, oh, this is the community of La and they are suffering from water. Can you see them over there? And then that is it. No, you need to be there. Get the right people to tell the stories. If it means if you can't speak their language, you are going to get a local person to do the translation, do it, because it is very important. And then pair stories with a clear call to action. Like Dorcas said, you are telling me that I should send my girl child to school. You are telling me that I should encourage my boys not to go and use money to play games and everything. But what can we do after this? What should we do? So you are going to speak to the assemblymen and women in the community that if you see any child after 8 p.m. on the streets dancing to any funeral beat or whatever, you have to arrest their parents or their guardians or something, because the children are not doing well in school, because young girls are being raped, because young boys are using money to buy more drugs. So then that's a clear call to action. What can we do? Okay, we are going to run a series of protests from one end of the street in the community to another end of the street. We are going to use placards. We are going to use people to just tell the story. So it has to be clear. You can't come and tell us that, okay, so for instance, COVID is here. We are telling everybody, wash your hands with soap and the running water and everything, but you're not showing them how to do it. Well, then what are we here for? Okay, so the clear call to action is that now they've even done videos in the form of for people who are both socially impaired and deaf and dumb and everything, and so they can all follow through to see what it is we are talking about. And then cast the right storytellers. It's similar to choosing, finding the right messengers for the story. people are able to tell stories from A to Z that you would definitely want to listen more and more and more. Every day you will call them to come on board and then help you make an intervention. Don't get someone who would just be so dull, who would be is not interested in the situation. They just want to be paid their money or their facilitation fee and they are gone. No. Even if it's, you have to get the people from the community to speak about the issues within that community so they can relate. Let's do that. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
Okay, so not yet that we've seen. So we still, I don't know, but there's a limitation. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think we have like 8 or 9 minutes more.
Yes.
Let's see what we can do within this short period.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. So then, let's move into artistic activism as far as storytelling is concerned. What is artistic activism? Any views from everybody? We've been silent for some time. Bella, Mavis, Andrews, Kaba, Noel, Patience, Richard. When we say artistic activism or activism, we know activism. So we've added artistic. What comes to mind? What are the words that come to mind?
Okay, so you can just raise a hand to share your view or on mute.
Hey, are we still here?
Yes. So
Okay, great.
Richard is on.
I think I see Kwame also.
Okay.
Okay, Kwame, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right. For my basic understanding, artistic activism is basically people using various forms of acts to kind of speak for a particular cause. It can be drawing, it can be drama. Yeah, that's my basic understanding.
Okay. Any more views, please?
Yes, we have Richard, Swansea, and yeah. So we take from Richard.
Okay, Richard.
Okay, so can look at probably designs, drawings, paintings that portrays or that carry out same message in a subtle way, but actually it helps people to understand more. But in a large extent, it comes in people, it is domestic violence, a woman, a drawing of a woman, or a drawing of a man and a woman, and a man trying to beat a woman or something of that sort. It portrays and transfers the message. So no one needs to be there before the message can be understood. As long as you see the drawing, it communicates thousands meanings to you than someone will really stand there to explain to you. That's my understanding.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, so we have Swansea and Kaba.
Okay, Swansea.
Okay, so I would also say it's using various forms of art to send down your message of the message you are trying to send out there through your activism.
Okay. Yes. And then I think Kaba is the last person, right?
Yes, please.
Great.
Yeah. So I want to add that it could be poetry or music too, artistic. That's my view.
Wonderful. You are all very, very, very right. Indeed, artistic activism has to do with using arts in various forms to send a message across, be it drawings, paintings, drama, music, poetry, and the likes like that. The missing factor here, though, is engagement in capital letters. Engagement. We've done a painting. We are talking about poetry. We've made music. We've done drama. But how do we engage the people that we are speaking to? how do we engage the people that the issue affects them? Is it just okay to do the drama and leave, or we have to do the drama and do something else? And this is where artistic activism comes in. It's about affect and causing an effect based on what you have done. Okay, so even on this slide, you can see that some people in the US are talking about, there's a whole big debate about menstrual health management, okay? And the fact that pads are still very expensive and there's a lot of tax that people pay on pads. So what did they do? They just took the pads and then pasted them on various light poles within the community. And they were using that also to talk about rape. Imagine if men were as disgusted with rape as they are with periods. I mean, if we say periods right now, I'm sure most of us be like, what are you talking about? I can't just get up and open my mouth and say, oh, I'm menstruating right now, because you're like, oh no, that's a nasty thing. Menstruation is even another discussion on its own altogether, as far as advocacy is concerned. But then what about this picture is artistic? It's the fact that they are using what the people use. I mean, a lot of women menstruate. A lot of women use pads or tampons or menstrual cups, or some use cotton wool and the likes. And so if you are able to openly talk about menstruation, why wouldn't you also talk about rape and then gender discrimination, among other things? Let's put it where people don't want to see. People don't want to see you holding pads around because it is nasty in quotes. And so then let's do it for them to see. Why are they doing artistic activism? See, in the past, I'm sure most of you here have attended a lot of conferences, workshops, capacity building, 3-day wine. There are so many names that we gave it. But what have those things ended? What have it done for us in our communities? What have we been able to do? Some people just want to even come, get their lunch, their per diem. Then they'll even complain about the rooms that we're giving them. My room is not clean, my room is this. Because you come for a workshop, then you take pictures of the nice places you are sleeping in, post them on social media, and that is it. We are trying to say that the traditional way of advocacy, where we go and sit in a room, attend workshops and conferences, is not helping. It hasn't done anything. It's just to spend donors' funds and then we are done. We write a whole lot of reports that is not even read, and then we are done. But in terms of artistic activism, you are using arts, you are using the arts industry to make sure that they are talking about issues that are affecting us. When you see a painting with a man beating a woman or a man in handcuffs, it would push you to the painting and say, what is happening? If you hear someone doing spoken word on issues of abuse or what else, maybe about, of course, the COVID pandemic and how people are even affected. People have recovered, but they are going through a whole lot of stigma. If you are able to put that within an arts form, in a drama form, what would that do? Because it's, for instance, if it is drama, okay, you start something and then you freeze and then you ask the community, okay, now this person just recovered from COVID. What would you do if you were the person's family? Come in and then take charge and then do your own scripts for 5 minutes. The person has felt involved or will feel very, very involved and will come into the drama that you've had frozen, try to tap on any of the people that he wants to play, and then would play out and change the script the way he wants to. It means you've involved him. Trust me, that person is going to go back home and then start thinking. The thinking dynamics of that person is going to change because he got involved in what you were doing. We are bringing about social change. The basic thing about artistic activism is the fact that we want to create an effect, okay? It's not okay to just take a long placard. It's not okay to just sit in conferences and workshops and then talk and talk and talk. See, some people can dominate a discussion in a workshop, especially within groups, that you'll be marveled at what they will do. But when it comes to action, you will not find them there. But artistic activism is about you being part of the solution. So even the picture you are seeing here is what Global Platform has also started doing. We don't want to just train people. We don't want to just go for sessions and talk to people and everything, but we are including artistic activism within our context. And Dorcas to talk about the gender response things that we would be planning for throughout the year as well, so to see how best you can all get involved. So it's not okay to just talk about things, but it's important to bring people on board. You are using your art, you are a musician, you are a poet, you are an advocate. What can you do to just talk about the situation surrounding you in an artistic way so people can relate more? And that is generally what artistic activism is about. For instance, I know those of you who know Greta Thunberg, the young um, climate strike activist. She's in her teens, and she has told herself she's not going to sit in any electric car or boat or whatever. So she started doing what we call the climate strike. She doesn't go to school on Fridays. She would just go and stand in front of the Parliament House is she from Germany? I think so. And would just hold a placard there. And her parents were like, why are you doing this? She said, if I don't do this, what will happen to the next generation that is coming? They are killing our planet. Our planet is on fire. We are just sitting there. The older people are not doing anything. Then her classmates got to know that this is what she's doing. Every Fridays, Greta doesn't come to school. What's happening? She just boycotts school on Fridays. Then they noticed this is what she's doing. Okay, I can also support. So then they all started also boycotting schools on Friday. And now it has become a global campaign. In Ghana, in all the continents around the world, people just strike. And there are various places that they do the strikes. So last year, Ghana took part in the strike. And hopefully this year, if we don't do it face-to-face, that is, if COVID is gone, we'll definitely do an online campaign. And that is where my the next session is also going to, in terms of just a few minutes. We can't meet face to face. What can we do with the various tools that we have right now? You have data, you have phones, you have your Facebook platforms, you have Instagram, you have all these things. What can you do in your own small way to talk about issues that are affecting you in your community by an artistic form? This is for us to think about. I know in Italy, because they couldn't meet together, what the community did was they all came to their windows, brought out their flags, and then someone started singing their national anthem, and then it became a whole community singing the national anthem to say that this too shall pass, sort of thing. Okay. Others are also doing artistic activism in a way that they meet online to discuss. Ghana has 300 million or so for all this whole pandemic. Who is the end beneficiary? Where is that money going to? What can we do as young people in an artistic way to follow where the money is going? So these are all ways that we can do some of these things in our small corners, okay? If we have questions up to this time, we can ask.
Okay, thank you so much.
I also feel that, no, just a few. Let me wrap up with this one and then we can finish up.
All right, okay, great.
Okay, so I know that even organizations like UNFPA, Aside Global Platform, has also started putting together artistic activism within their advocacy work. Because yes, they also noticed that it's not okay to bring people together and talk about women and child abuse. It's not okay to talk about child marriage and early marriage and all that. But what can we do to depict what we are discussing? So I remember last year when we were having the 16 days of activism, they also came out to do some. You can see the lady on the left, if you can all see it. They lined them up on some principal streets of Accra. So if you are driving by, you definitely want to look, okay, this is how an abused woman looks like. Okay, this is how a child who gets married early also looks like. So in some parts of the US, they make young girls wear wedding gowns and the veils and everything and line them on the streets for you to see how early marriage affects young people, because it breaks down their education, their body and biological system is not ready for all the things that childbirth comes with, among other things. And so these are just examples for us. And finally, like we are saying, artistic activism, because like I said, see, the conventional activism has not been effective. Like I'm saying, the workshops and the capacity building and the forums and what, it hasn't yielded anything. We go and eat, take our per diems and transportation. Some people even fight over the fact that they didn't get snacks and t-shirts, and then we are gone. Okay. But so far as we are using arts, we are using it to provide alternative forms of communication. It's not everybody that can speak as articulately as you and I can in workshops and then take over the whole forum. But they can do that in their own small way within the arts that they are exposed to. So what can you and I do? This is the new-ish, if I should say it. So let's come on board and then join forces to see what we can do. Thank you very much. And yeah, I would want to answer the question, or try to answer the question Patience asked, before I open the gates to more comments and questions. She was saying that she's running something on storytelling. Patience, if you are here, what exactly about, like, what's the theme for you wanting to use the storytelling? What is it about?
It's rather Stella.
Oh, Stella, sorry, yes. What is it about? Stella.
Hi.
Yes.
So
what is your storytelling about?
For now, I would say it's on gender-based violence. I don't know if that information is enough for you to be able to answer the question.
Okay. Of course, gender-based violence has a lot of it's broad, but
yes.
I would also advise that you try as much as possible to narrow down your.
I would probably get in touch with you and then we can talk about it, because I have.
Okay.
I have actually.
Okay.
So
okay.
Maybe the best thing is to get in touch with you so we talk about it.
Okay, so the little I can say on this is that based on what thematic area on gender-based violence you want to do, yes, you want to use storytelling, but probably we've shared some few artistic ways that you could do it. So when we talk, we would also link you up with some of our artistic, we call them the West African creative artists. We can link you up with some of them to see how they can fine-tune it to get the people you will be engaging also interested, because it's not enough to go and do storytelling, but we want to see the people we've engaged. For instance, how many people said, yes, they want to start or help you join the campaign and then speak about it in their communities? How many community leaders responded to the call to action that you would be asking them to take part in? So these are all ways that we can see, we can brainstorm on them. So just get in touch after and then we see what we can do from here. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Daniel. So questions, comments?
So we have a question from Richard.
Okay. My question is, we are talking about say using artworks to convey a message that actually speaks to people's emotion, and at long run it works on their, let's say, so effect and affect, that is psychological status. I want to know, sometimes if you want to understand why some parents give out their, let's say, young daughters into early marriage, is as a result of their inability to take care of them. Some parents have plenty girls, but they are unable to take care of them. Sometimes too, it is as a result of the economic condition at stake. And if you look clearly, you go to the fishing communities and the roles of women too, you realize that sometimes the young girls are given out to go and help the fishermen so that the families can get food at the end of the day. So if you want to actually advocate with some of these means, using artistics or whether storytelling, how would you be able to communicate same and still make sure that the basic need of the family is being sorted out? Because it's not only about advocating on the issue, but how has your advocacy, trickled down to solve the problem of that father who is still having the economic condition? Because at the end of the day,
your advocacy must yield a result. But how would that translate into that economic condition that pushes the family to put out their girl child into such a situation?
All right, thank you very much, Richard. And I don't know the
Just a
response.
minute.
Okay, so just as Lily is preparing to do a comeback on this one, let's say justice through advocacy and in being a form of artistic manner, it's just a way of reinforcing what as we easily associate with, and making sure that people have a picture in their minds. So you just don't do it and you go to sleep, and when you ask someone, the person is not able to recall. Just like how sometimes when we watch a movie, we are able to narrate to someone what exactly the movie is. I'm sure if most of us who have watched Isakaba can recall the action and how things were done, and we can even give you instances. This is more for relating to advocacy and looking at how best to solve an issue. Just as you said, we might resolve an issue, but then we might not have touched certain areas where a father would have to stop giving out her word for marriage. So I think in advocacy, the artistic way might be has a purpose. So in terms of ruling out the artistic activism, we also have another, we might also want to draw another strategy that might be focusing on that. So is it because of poverty that makes them give out the award? Because in certain cultures, when the woman is getting married, and the bride price that are being paid for, they are quite a lot, like huge sum of money. There are cattle that are being brought, there are goats, sheep and all that. So I think in resolving such, the artistic activism will draw the attention and bring to mind the severity of the problem, or the severity or the how severe or what is the impact of their action on the girl child you're looking at, or perhaps on the person or the community that they might not have seen. So that's what I'm saying, that sometimes it's development is quite has so many branches that in resolving one issue you might end up resolving so many other issues in order to achieve something at the end of the day. So if it is poverty that is making them give out their awards, in as much as we educate them on the need to send their girl child to school and not to give them out for marriage, we might have to also find a way of also offering some opportunities in order to alleviate the impact of poverty in their lives. So it's a holistic manner such that we don't leave one hand and expect the other hand to hold and support the development or the progress we want to see in the community. And I think artistic activism has it's a branch in supporting our campaigns, but not being an entire solution to our problem. So we might want to look at other issues too. Richard.
Yeah. To add on to what he just said, who asked this a question?
That's Richard. Richard asked.
Richard, okay, yes. So Richard, livelihoods, issues of livelihoods is like a very, very big thing, because number one, you would have to now want to look at what the father does. Is the fishing giving him fetching enough for the family? We are looking at family size and all that. And a lot of people can't, obviously you can't provide for everybody. It's just like when this whole COVID pandemic started. Then they started giving money and food to Kaya, feeding them. And now others also started saying, we too, we need food. We too, we need money. We too, we need relief items. And then what are you going to do? So you have to lift the lockdown, and then people go back to being on their own, but make sure that they take the various precautionary measures. Setting that aside, I'm saying that, how would you do this? You need to find a way to communicate to the community and family or father of these children that, listen, you are selling your child for, I've been to Germany before, so I know the whole situation concerning the fishing, the early marriage and the likes like that. You let them understand that you are selling your child for 30 cedars, for 100 cedars. to go live with someone. If you can play a scenario that depicts how fast that 100 cedis can be squandered, okay, within a drama setting, a painting, whatever it is you can do within their language that they would understand, you let them understand that, okay. Now, you also meet a young girl, if you can follow through, find out what they do when they are even sent off. You are supposed to, if you can depict that kind of everyday life that they live when they are sent off to their host family, to the father or to the community, for them to see what their children go through. That would also, so it's like I'm breaking the processes down. So how that money that they sell the children for is squandered, the kind of treatments that the everyday life of the child or children involved, how it is done, be it in drama, music, whichever way, poetry. And then now, some or most district assemblies or have the common fund. We have LEAP, we have other social protection provisions within various communities. As an advocate, would you want to go the extra mile, or can you go the extra mile to meet these district assembly members, MPs, and then find out from them the kind of social protection provisions they have made within that community? Can you sign the father on to LEAP? Can you help sign the father on, the child onto the free education that is there? Can you help them with, can you link them up to some NGOs that are within that community that can help mentor the girl child or the children of that man? You see, can you even, your organization, become a mentor to them? There are some of us who do so many other things, both within Easter and Christmas, and even like helping mentor other young people in their various communities in which they are. Of course, you can't go there every day, but these are some of the things you can do. Because you need to let the family also know that your child is going to come back and suffer. You are selling them for 100 cedis. It's going to finish within 3 days. Within a month, it would finish. Then what would you do? So the end result is way, way, way better and greater than just that short period of 100 cedis that you are going to sell your child for. So for me, these are some of the steps. And like Daniel said, yes, we can't meet everybody's needs, but at least we can do something as far as the children are concerned. Okay, so this is my contribution. I'm not really answering the question because it's really broad when it comes to livelihoods, people's jobs, and the likes like that, economic situations. So yes, if anybody wants to add up that, you can please feel free to.
Yeah, it's okay. So we've had that question. I don't know, Richard, I don't know, are you satisfied with the response to your question?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I understand that development is broadened. We must start somewhere and end somewhere. But
Yeah.
I also observed something about the UNICEF recent, no longer ago, their message that they on the street, and then they were holding the placards that convey the message. I have a problem with that because in our society, probably people still believe that women play subordination roles. Now, if you are advocating for something, let's say domestic violence or gender-based violence, I was thinking they could consider, or they should have considered, the power relations and even bring men on board. But at the end of the day, they paraded the young girls on the street, and people also say that they are just abusing the girls, because some people also say that the girls are going to be paid at the end of the day. So that's how come they also agree to take that kind of position. So to make the message that they try to put across, people understood it in different way rather than the exact focus of what they want to do. To me, I was thinking they should have engaged some men that also carry some of the placards that, like trying to change that aspect of the status quo. But over here, they only project the other side, that it is the men who actually cause harm to the women. So the women are on the street advocating. Some also observe the same thing. But that's my observation.
Yeah, Richard, I can't speak to UNICEF. I don't know the background checks they did before embarking on that particular campaign. But of course, I agree that they should have consulted the men, so the men would also speak and hold placards. I only want to say that it's good to use placards in artistic activism, but it should go beyond just placards, because now placards have also become, it's moving towards the traditional way of advocacy, because we hold it right, put on a red headband, and then we are walking around for people to read. Not everybody can read. So what do? There are other installations that that UNICEF could have done, and then we can also do that. It's all about thinking it through, that they could have done to see this across. So for instance, if it had to do with child marriage, if it had to do with abuse, they could have also, for instance, probably opened their car park space or another space, and then probably placed the various families, okay, who have been affected by gender abuse. Like, for instance, if I was the one affected by any of these abuses, they would place my shirt, the shirt that if I was raped, my shirt or dress that was torn. I mean, let people feel connected to the issue. Okay, that is if you are able to speak to the families and they are willing to give you the torn clothes of the girl or her shoes or something that symbolizes the person. You just place them and line them up for people to come around and see and make it and personalize the issue. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, but it's not okay to use placards. That's all I'm saying. Placards have now also become
I do.
Traditional way of doing things, but let's move beyond placards and personalize the situation so people can feel more attached and speak to their emotions. So that's what I'm saying. So like I said, I can't speak to UNICEF. I don't know the background checks they did for that, but I agree. That's why it's important to look at the target audience and look at who can we partner, who can we bring on board to help us carry our messages across. So that's why even in the music industry, we are getting a lot of collaborations. It's unfortunate there's a lot of beef going on, but I mean, when you collaborate, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and yeah. So it's good to collaborate also as artistic activists.